What's up? Today, I'm going to show you how to get ready for your first gig in Serato. Now, even though I said first gig, this can still apply to DJs like myself, for example, who aren't really organized at times, and it can kind of be a mess, and we have way too many songs that we don't use. And when I say way too many, I mean like way too many. But there is a system I follow typically. I'm on a new computer right now, so this is actually a good opportunity. I really don't have many songs on here, so I'll just show you guys kind of how I get organized and how I start to put crates together. Another important thing to note is that make sure you have all the proper drivers, every sort of like proper install that you can get off Serato's website. And make sure you have all of those downloaded and installed before you try to go to your gig. Make sure it's working. And then from there, you should be good to go if you follow these steps and get organized. So this is a new sort of like setup here. So there's a lot of different columns here in Serato. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them up in the way that I prefer to have it. So if you click on this arrow here on the far right, it actually gives you a drop down so you can add or take away things. So I don't need the comment section. The genre section I want, key I want, I don't need track. Yeah, it's pretty much all I use, to be honest, when I'm DJing. Just the song, the artist, the BPM, the key, the genre, and the year. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could go about this from here on out once you have your column set up when you're getting organized. I like to follow a methodology of like color coding. I think that's very helpful. It's easier on the eyes for me personally. So what I do is I go into my column section here and I'm going to click on genre. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to color code based off of each genre. And I actually, where can I find it here? If you go to charts on heavy hits, under the different types of genres, there's different colors. So hip hop, we have colored as red. Electronic dance is green. International is like a teal, Latin's purple, pop is like a yellowish orange, and then reggae dancehall is like a greenish color, like a lighter green, like a lime. So that's what I'm going to go through and do here. So I will speed up the process though by highlighting a large group of tracks and then assigning it one color. And if you want to select all of these tracks here, you could just hold shift and then click down and then it'll highlight the whole group. And also any other subgenres here. So Future House, for me, falls under like electronic and dance, or dance falls under electronic and dance. So I'm going to highlight those that greenish color. And then all my hip hop is going to be red. House and club, what are these? Okay. And I'm going to give my Latin section a good like purple color here. So that's just a real quick example of the color coding here. And if you want to even, so you can organize it by song, obviously you could click on the columns here when you're going through and DJing. But if you want to fall back on a certain genre and you kind of want to keep it open, let's say it's like a hip hop party or something like that, you can then just click on this color section and then you have all of your hip hop tracks too. Because sometimes, like for example, this indie hip hop instrumental wouldn't have come up right away in the hip hop section. If I would have went by genre, I is at a different section than like an H, obviously, on the alphabet. So it would be very difficult for me to find it. Another example is like instrumentals, or let's say something's just not properly labeled and it doesn't really match it based off of like a download you got off of iTunes or your current organizing system. So it's important to go through and actually color code them, because you can then use the colors to then create your own kind of bracket that you're looking for. And let's take it even a step further. So in Serato, you can actually organize by multiple columns. So I'm going to leave this arrow on, and then let's say I'm doing a hip hop party for like, let's say it's just like a 90s hip hop party, right? If I use that arrow and then also highlight the year section, I can then do a double filtered search. So I can just go through that section. Like this is obviously, I don't have a lot of audio files on here, but if I did, my standard 90s section is huge. So it's a way to really sift through all of that. So right there, just by hitting Control and then clicking on it, you can see here it's filtered through by year and as well as this hip hop section that I have in the colors. And that is also my only other critique of Serato, is you can only do it with 2 columns at a time. I can't do 3 or 4, which is okay, but I would like to see it be 3, because it would be amazing if I could have it in order, like obviously in the red here for the section, my like genre, and then I have the year, and if I could also do it by BPM, that would just be chef's kiss. It would just be amazing. So let's stay on the topic of like the 90s hip hop party. So I'm just going to dump this all in a crate, and then I'm just going to label it. So I'm just going to hold shift and then highlight everything in the 90s. Then I'm just going to drag it off to the side here. And you see how crate 5 came up? If you single click on it, those are all the tracks. And if I double click on it, I can rename it. So 90s hip hop. That's your first crate. So if you're doing a 90s hip hop party, obviously you would have a bunch more songs and not only instrumentals, unless it's an instrumental only party, which would be interesting. So if you go through and color code all of your songs, and then you utilize that to then have a base for your search, it'll be great moving forward for you. As you can see, once everything was color coded, I literally just clicked two things, the arrow for the color and the arrow for the year. And then I was able to just slide it all over into a 90s hip hop crate. Done. Then another thing I use crates for too here is if I'm like making ideas, or if I'm just brainstorming, like if it's the morning and I'm having my first cup of coffee and I'm trying to figure out what sort of edits I want to make for the day, or if there's a new routine I'm working on. A lot of the times I'll have these separate crates here. Since this is a brand new computer, I don't have any of them labeled. But what I will do is, for example, see how these two are in the same key? If I'm making like a mashup or something like that, or I'm trying to brainstorm new ideas, what I'll do is I'll organize by BPM and key here. You could see how they're both linked up here, both checked. When I was putting together that 5 hours mashup you saw there with the two songs, I was just scrolling through. I knew 5 hours, the original track, didn't have any sort of vocal over it. So I put that on there, and then I just typed in like the first 4 letters of acapella. And then I just went down to the key section that was 6A. And then, I couldn't find it because it was titled vocals because it's from the stems. But I ended up finding it in the same key. Then I used that. So if you're working on mashups, edits, or you're trying to mix harmonically, I would just check the BPM and key box when you're putting together your sets. And then you can even make crates based off of key and similar BPM. Another thing to consider too when you're putting together your crates is helpful DJ tools and things of that nature. So I like to make a crate when I'm first putting together like a new library or something like that. I'll just type in transition, and then I'll make a crate titled just only like transitional edits. And then I'll have like the base tempo. So I have 2 in here that are around like the 95, 100. So I'll title it like transitions 90 to 100. So let's say you're in a certain tempo, right? And you want to get out of that tempo range. Let's say you're in that like mustard beat range or something like that, which is about that like 90 to 100-ish tempo range. And you're trying to get out of it. Having a crate like this is really good. Instead of just typing in transition on your computer and you're like really trying to like scroll through, freak out, you're like doom scrolling through. You just have that crate there, and you just click on transitions 90 to 100, and then you're good to go. And I recommend doing that with like everything. So you could take all of your acapella in edits, drag them into their own crate. Same thing with like hype edits or anything else that you have that you might want to use. And that's pretty much it for just base organization and getting ready. Making sure you set up your columns, color coding. Those are all things that I do that I've found that are really beneficial for me. The only other thing I would say that I like to organize based off of is sort of a mood or like a setup. What I mean by that is kind of like a progression of a night. So having a warm-up crate or some sort of like prime time tracks, okay? So that's something that Serato doesn't really have the capability of acknowledging. Is for this sort of environment, this track might be considered a warm-up, but for this event, it might be considered like an absolute like primetime banger. Like let's say like a Sean Kingston song, right? That might be like a solid warm-up song in some sort of environment. But in another environment, it might be like the absolute banger of the night and everyone loves it. So it's also important to go off of taste too. Maybe reference like other playlists, maybe on Heavy Hits or Crate Hackers or any other website that you utilize to sort of put together music and organize it and get other perspectives. I would recommend going through and checking those sort of resources out. And then through that, you then start to put together your own crates. So, and then you would title them based off of the genre. So for example, I would make a pop warm-up crate, or like a pop prime time crate, or a lounge house crate, or like a hip hop warm up, 90s hip hop warm up, 2000s hip hop warm up, 2010s hip hop warm up. And that's actually another good point to bring up too, is you can have sub crates as well. So if you just titled this crate warm up, you can take other crates and drag them under it as well. So if you just drag it slightly to the right, you could have these all under there. So if I had this whole crate as like my warm up, I can have a sub crate that says like 2000s warm up, 2010s warm up, 2020s warm up, like I was saying. So you could break it up however you feel. I like to do it by like decades. So setting up your crates like that is also really beneficial. So you have your pop warm up and then you have it by each decade. Maybe you do it by key or BPM, whatever you prefer. And then I would just go down the line and do the same thing with everything. And once you're organized, you should be good to go. Alrighty, ladies and gents, that wraps it up for today's video. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will be back soon with another record box video and a Serato video for you guys. Hopefully maybe some live DJ examples in there. And then I would like to get someone on here who's very proficient in Tractor. So if you know anyone who's proficient in Tractor or even uses Tractor, just let me know. And make sure you hit that notification bell too, because we have a lot of videos coming every Monday and Thursday, and maybe a couple shorts sprinkled in between, just some quick tip videos for you guys. But until then, take it easy, and I'll see you soon.